Hi, it's Emma here from Women and Golf, and with me today is Lizzie Smith, who is a clinical hypnotherapist and hypnoanalyst and BWRT practitioner. And she's here today to talk to us about hypnotherapy and golf. Now, I was lucky enough to spend some time with Lizzie about a month ago where I had a hypnotherapy session, and we tried all sorts of things and talked about lots of things to do with how to improve my performance. Now, I'm not a brilliant golfer, but we're trying to improve my performance on the golf course. So what we're going to do today is sort of talk through what hypnotherapy is, then also maybe look at some actual scenarios on the golf course and how maybe hypnotherapy and other techniques can help us. And I think some of you out there might be able to relate to this a lot. So let's delve straight in and say, well, let's just ask, what is hypnotherapy and how does hypnotherapy work?
Well, thank you for having me to chat, Emma. Hypnotherapy is different from other therapies because it doesn't rely on the conscious thought process. So I'm dealing with the subconscious part of the mind, which is where we hold all our core beliefs, our negative behaviours, our responses to things, our learned behaviours. So if you're having a problem on the golf course, if you're feeling tense, under pressure, you will be responding. It'll be that part of your brain that is responding. So the work I do isn't so much to do with the conscious part of the brain, which is obviously the actual mechanics of golf. I'm dealing with the mental side, which is obviously key in performing well.
Right. Okay. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I think when we talk about golf, it's very much the mental thing. We all say that we're absolutely fine and we're standing on that first tee and everything goes horribly, horribly wrong. So would it be all right if we went through some sort of specific problems? Because we actually asked some of our readers what they find difficult on the golf course. Sure. So the first one we had here was around remaining positive, which is very, very sort of, I find this very relatable. So the question was, when you're trying to remain positive, when your round isn't great, but the positivity isn't helping you, and you're still playing badly. So how do you stop that negativity taking over? Because it just becomes all-consuming. So what I'm trying to find out really is whether, what sort of techniques could I use if I wanted to try and sort of remain positive rather than getting that negative feel all the time?
Well, I would probably in this instance use probably a combination of therapies. The most well-known one is hypnosis that I use. And that with hypnosis, I would be turning down the negativity, turning down that negative narrative that goes on in our subconscious mind and goes on to affect performance. And I would also turn up confidence, positivity. So when we're in that lovely relaxed state, it's possible for me to do that. There's another therapy I use called BWRT, brain working recursive therapy, which doesn't involve hypnosis at all, but it's a really effective way of dealing with fear. So if this is something that happens a lot, or it's something that you've had happen to you, you've had bad experiences, this happens on a regular basis, I would probably use that particular therapy, which will just completely stop it in its tracks. So a combination, depending on the person, what they were, how they were reacting to things. I'd probably start off with hypnosis and then maybe move on to, as I say, if it was something that had happened regularly, if it was a sort of nemesis hole that you were dealing with, then I would probably go with BWRT.
Yes, because when we had our session, we only did the hypnotherapy side of stuff. So I think
we did hypnosis, didn't we? Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
It did really help, I think, for me with my, as you say, nemesis hole. But like you say, it's one of those ones that with only one session, I'm not quite sure. I think I would need more to really find the benefit from it. But definitely the first time out afterwards, it was actually a relief to find myself standing up feeling a little bit more positive than I normally am.
Good.
So we talk about positivity and things like that, but there's also other things that get involved when you're on the golf course. And another one of those is anger or anger management. And we had someone ask, so that you're standing over, you're on the putting green and you're standing over a 2-foot putt, not very long putt at all. your playing partner starts talking as you're about to putt, and then you miss it. So how do you calm down before you go off on the next tee? Because, you just, that was such an easy putt, you missed it, but that's all because your playing partner was just not paying attention.
Talking.
So how would you cope in that situation, or what would you do?
Well, with this, I would probably use another therapy, which is called EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique. Now, this involves tapping on acupressure points around the head and the collarbone. Now, it's a technique used by lots of golfers. So your readers may well have seen people out on the golf course tapping, or even with just one finger. And it's a way to really distance yourself, to sort of give yourself a good talking to, so you can really talk about feeling positive, confident, zoning somebody out if they are talking, and really focusing on what you have to do. So as I say, it's used, if you're feeling distracted, it's a really useful way of just getting back into the zone again. And that is something I always teach people who, when I'm working, I mean, I teach lots of clients this, but particularly sports people, so golfers, tennis players, cricketers. It's a really good one, and it's a really useful tool to have in life anyway. So
when you deploy,
it's something that.
No, go on. I was going to say, when you deploy that technique, is that sort of, because I did a little bit with you. Is it the action of the tapping that's, or is it obviously there's all sorts of other things? It's not just tapping, and that's not something we've got time to go into today. But is that idea that it's meant to? Go on. Sorry. Okay.
No, sorry. I was just going to say you sort of focus on the problem. So it's something you have to practice before you go onto the golf course. So, if something like anger is something that affects you, you own that problem, talk about it. I would create a script for you. You work through that, and you tap on the various points, and then you would deploy a collarbone tap, which is a very positive affirmation to keep you focused and to keep you calm. And not angry and not irritated. So that's the one you do on the golf course. But you will have practiced before you go. It works really well. I mean, it is something that I would encourage everyone to try.
And it definitely feels like it's something that probably goes beyond golf as well in some ways. Any sort.
Oh, it does. I mean, I use it for anxiety, stress. All sorts of things. I mean, it's in fact I use it for weight as well when people are wanting to snack. So for urges, cravings. So I mean, you can use it for all sorts of things. Once you know how to do it, it's a great tool.
Yeah, I certainly need to practice more. That's for sure. So we're going on to another one here, which was about being kind to yourself. So you're on a par 5. You've had 2 good shots, then as this person's but chunk one, so hit a really bad shot. How do you recover from that next shot, or the 4th shot, and try and save par on that hole? So the 3rd shot's just gone horribly wrong, but you need to recover and still get that ball in the hole. How would you cope with something like that?
Well, the tapping would help you. That could be something you could deploy. I think probably hypnosis I would use. I mean, hypnosis has a cumulative effect. So, a few sessions of hypnosis, you will be feeling much more confident and less bothered by something goes a bit wrong. I mean, everyone plays a bad shot from time to time. So it's about being able to recover and not letting that shot take over, and you can't move forward because you're constantly thinking about, oh, what if it happens again? Now, again, as I said before, if this is something you've got a very bad memory of this happening and maybe ruining a match you played in, or and it's something that sort of plays over in your mind, then I would use the BWRT, and then you are completely distanced from it. I mean, it's obviously happened. We use BWRT for lots of things like fears, phobias. So it's bad memories, traumas, and of course you can have trauma on a golf course. The other thing to say, obviously, is if you've got other things going on in your life at the time, that can be affecting. So BWRT is something I might use for something else that's going on. So, But I would say probably hypnosis in that instance, with a bit of tapping, which you could do yourself.
And with regards, I think the one thing that I'm probably not fully clear on, because I'm obviously not an expert, but with the hypnosis side of things, you know, obviously, if I was to have another session with you, or to have regular sessions with you, we wouldn't just work on that chunk shot. I mean, I assume hypnosis is a much bigger area. It's not just one. We're not working on one specific thing, is what I'm trying to say. Because obviously, I think just need to explain a little bit more about what a regular sort of hypnosis, what that would be sort of covering, if that's not too much of a detailed question.
Well, I mean, the thing with hypnosis is that we would be working on, I mean, obviously there's a certain amount of talking therapy going on as well, but as I said, if you've got other things going on in your life, so if you've got, you know, stress issues at work, if you're bereaved or you've suffered loss recently, the things like that. So obviously if that's going on, you've got relationship issues, that will be impacting on your golf. So the hypnosis sessions would be working on other feelings, emotional feelings you may be having that could be affecting your golf. But also it can, you know, I can be turning up your confidence, your self-confidence, so that you will, and I mean, literally once you will feel more confident, more able, and we can have relate, but it's really me finding the person what is there wanting to work on. Yes, I mean, the BWRT works well for, as I say, those bad memories we've got, and we'll just sort of put them to bed, so they won't affect you. And again, it works for, you know, it works for lots and lots of other things as well as sport. But so with all of these questions, it's a bit of a mix really, and would depend very much on other things that we're presenting. But they all work very well, and sometimes work very well in combination with each other.
Okay, that's great. Now that makes a lot more sense, actually. I think I already sort of knew that, but I don't know whether everyone else would sort of understand it. So that's really interesting. We've got another one here on distraction. Someone said, one of your playing partners is well known for moaning. How do you zone them out? So this might be slightly similar to one of the other questions, but again, a bit like the one that's sort of talking over your putt. But how do you zone out people that are already quite negative around you?
Yeah. Well, hypnosis works very well for this. In fact, I was working with someone quite recently who'd moved to where I live in Windsor. We have a lot of aeroplanes that go over constantly and very low. And she said to me, I can't cope with these planes. I mean, they're literally very, very low, very loud. So I did hypnosis, and I just suggested to her that she will just not be bothered in the future by the noise of the aeroplanes. And when I next saw her a few weeks later, she said to me, I think they've changed the flight paths because they're just not coming over. Literally as a plane new house. So I knew they hadn't changed the flight paths, but she was just not bothered by that noise. The plane's just gone over now. So it works incredibly well. But if you really want something to happen, you don't want to be bothered by your partner's moaning and you know, chatting or whatever. If you want that consciously, it's very easy to suggest to your subconscious that you are no longer going to be bothered by it. So you'll just, you know, when I work with people with this sort of thing, they just say, actually, you know, my partners are, you know, they don't seem to moan as much as they used to. They probably are still moaning just as much, but it's not having that effect on the person. So I would say hypnosis for that. Again, tapping would help you, but I think once I've done the hypnosis, it's just not going to bother you anymore.
So is that sort of, would you think that it's hypnosis as well? So if you've got to try and calm your first T nerves, is that sort of also something that hypnosis would help with? It would have a very calming effect. Yes. And also there are other things, you know, there are other techniques I can, you know, breathing, obviously. I mean, you know, breathing techniques, really important, because if we overbreathe, you know, if our breathing goes out of sync, due to nerves, the brain senses danger and goes into the fight or flight response. And of course, that will then impact the club.
you know, your muscles, the club, the ball, everything. So, you know, there are other things that I work on as well. If people suffer from, you know, really bad nerves, and I think, you know, for a lot of people, I've been working recently with a young elite golfer, and he said to me, you know, why can't I feel like I do on the driving range? Because when he's on the driving range, there's no pressure and he hits the most amazing shots. But, you know, once the pressure starts, then the overthinking starts. It affects his game. So it is about learning, and there are specific techniques like the breathing, like the tapping, that will help you, as well as obviously the other stuff that I do. I mean, the hypnosis is where the big shifts happen. So positive shifts.
Okay, so I think that probably covers the other question I had from somebody who said, can hypnotherapy help with the dreaded yips? So I think we've probably already covered that in that idea. Yes.
I mean, obviously talking about it. I mean, hypnotherapy involves talking therapy, so talking about how that impacts, and that can help people as well. Just sort of saying it out loud and talking that through. But then the hypnosis part will, yes, definitely help that. Definitely.
Yeah, it was interesting.
And the tap, and again the tapping. Just. But I'm such a fan of tapping because it will. You know, you could do that yourself. You know, you have hypnosis sessions with me on Zoom or whatever. But then, you know, just to bring those nerves down, and though you know, it will have a really good effect as well.
It was interesting you mentioning the breathing as well, because I think I said to you before this that I was quite conscious that I probably would have noticed it anyway, but when we were watching Phil Mickelson on the PGA Championship on those last couple of holes, you could see him taking these really deep breaths, and it made me think of our session and thinking, well, and it did say afterwards, I'm sure I read somewhere that it said that he's been doing a lot of work on his mental game, and, you know, thinking about
the mental side of the game. Yes.
So even you know, even at 50, he's doing, you know, still making sure that the mental side's really, really strong. I don't know if there's anything else you want to finish up with, anything else you wanted to cover, because I think we sort of covered it all. We did have one last question about sort of any on-course exercises, but I think we may have sort of already covered those. Was there anything else? Obviously there was the tapping, and I guess, you know, we talked about breathing. Is there anything else you can recommend when you're on the course?
When you're on the course, not really. I mean, I would say probably it's specifics. I would say probably those two. I mean, the things you can do for yourself are obviously the breathing techniques that you can learn, and the tapping. I mean, the tapping, just to give you an example, when I learnt EFT many years ago, I had never played golf, and they picked me out to demonstrate. And so they said to me, would you be able to hit a ball into a little glass across a room? They not hit it, and it went off in the opposite direction. Then we tapped on my feelings of I can't do it, and what if I focused, and did this whole routine. And they then handed me the club. I hit the ball and it went into the glass. And this was me having ever played golf. And everybody was astounded, and it really proved to me. And I thought, gosh, what could this do if you did play golf? You know, the fact that it worked so well with me all those years ago, having not played at that stage. So I was you know, blown away by it. So again, it's something you can do for yourself once you know how to do it.
That's impressive. Well, if you can improve someone's putting just by sort of learning a new tapping technique, it sounds good to me. That's for sure.
Yes.
Well, I really appreciate your time today, Lizzie, and I think we've already covered quite a lot. What we'll be doing is hopefully following up with I'm going to try and use some of these techniques on the golf course in future months, and we can sort of follow up at a later date, and hopefully maybe some other people might have some questions that they can drop in, and we'll get those answered for them. But I really appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.